thanks to the organisers at Sydstart. You've put on a really great show on. I've learned quite a bit from some of the talks here today, and I'm really happy and excited to be able to present to you today on stage. One of the really exciting things for me today is that I'm not going to be talking about my usual things, which is what I talk about at Kogan.com, things like programming, agile methodology, machine learning, source code. Instead, today, I get a breath of fresh air and I get to talk to you about something that I'm passionate about outside of our work, and that's drones. So my involvement in drones stemmed from a project which was a worldwide project involving counter-poaching of rhinoceroses in South Africa. Now, rhinos are poached for their horns, for the rhino horn. There's a market for this in Vietnam. They're used as a trophy piece. Rhino horn goes for like $65,000 a kilo, and one is about 4 kilos. In Asia, in China, it's ground up as a powder and is used as a medicine for, what is it for? Various things, and one of them being a hangover cure. And it's also used for dagger handles in some countries in Africa. Now, one rhino is poached every 8 hours. There's been a huge increase, a 94-fold increase in the market of poaching. There were 13 rhinos that were poached in 2007, and this is compared to 1,215 last year. So one every 8 hours. It's a big problem, and a lot of people are approaching this problem trying to solve it. They're doing it in various ways. One is having the rangers on board. The rangers out there on the field patrolling for poachers. Another more unique approach is where people are actually tagging the rhinos and painting the horn so that it doesn't look great on a mantelpiece, as well as poisoning the horn in a way that it doesn't actually affect the rhino, but it makes it inedible so that you get nausea if you were to consume this rhino horn powder. Another really interesting one is people are actually creating genetic clones of the rhino horn and trying to flood the market with that. The way I got involved is through a project where we've built a plane, a drone which is used to give park rangers eyes in the sky. So the pitch is that you get a park ranger on a tablet. The park ranger will draw out the circular path they want the drone to fly, launch the drone by hand or via a catapult. The drone will perform its duties. It's got a camera on board and a computer, much like a Raspberry Pi, a bit more powerful on board, which will process the images it receives, doing object detection. And then when it finds something of interest, it'll send a push notification down to the park ranger in order to notify them that an area or an event has occurred of interest. This alleviates them from having to closely monitor or use a RC controller and fly the plane the entire time. The project's ongoing, but there's a bit that I really want to share with you, and it's this little video here this is a smaller plane than the real one. It's just a test flight, but this is the real key piece, and I'll play the video. So in this video, we'll see a few things. I've launched the plane, it was off, well, it wasn't active, it automatically detected that it had launched. We see a quick glimpse, I've cut it through for time, and we see a quick glimpse of the plane tracking to its path, as well as showing us on a map exactly where it is. And then there's this majestic landing of the plane, which to me was the most inspiring and awe-inspiring moment, when you just watch this plane glide gently, adjusting its speed to land where you've asked it to land. Now this sounds like a really big and complicated task to do, and it is, but one of the magical parts to this is that it's actually a piece which you can buy right now from online, from 3DR Robotics. It's called a Pixhawk, and it's an open source autopilot. And yes, you need to Google, and you need to tie a few bits and pieces together, and you need to be a little bit geeky to get this going. But we made the ability to get eyes in the sky, or to have a drone take off and perform a task in the sky at a really low cost. The entire cost of the plane is under $1,000. That means it's a big win for conservation, who can now see a lot further than they could in their Jeep. And it's a big win for people that are trying to monitor the environment. And it's a big win for any entrepreneur that wants to do something in the sky, which previously took millions of dollars of investment and funding, that they can now work with today at a cost of under $1,000. Now, that's really cool, but there's some real hot topic on at the moment, and it's, will drones deliver your online shopping? So I think it's possible, yes. We've seen some videos, and whether it's going to happen anytime soon is a question, and I've got a few sort of bits and pieces I want to point out about, the possibilities or the hurdles that are coming our way. Operationally, it makes sense. Drones are actually really cheap. So to produce fleets of them, and you manufacture them at large scale, you really get, it's a lot cheaper, for example, than having the robots in Amazon's warehouses where they go and deliver all the goods to people to pick and pack. One of these things would probably cost around $500 to $1,000 when produced at a bigger scale. So what are the problems with them? Well, the first one is flight time. We don't hear about this often, but typically the quadcopters and multirotors have a 20-minute flight time. That's because they're not aerodynamic. They don't glide in the sky. If the props die, they fall to the ground. And that's a big balance of weight and power. So there's a lot of innovation waiting to happen in how we power drones today, and how they will be able to lift and carry an object that's worth delivering. So sure, a drone can easily lift an aspirin and drop it down to your door on Sunday morning after you've been out at the after party and you need a quick fix to your hangover. But will it be able to deliver a wide range of products? There's a lot that needs to be improved in that area. The other one is, what else is up in the sky? Like, what is in the sky right now? What is it got to fly into? We never see that when we see the videos, because they're always flight paths that have been predetermined, and then obviously avoiding things like trees, power lines, buildings, people. So there's a lot to be done in sense and avoid technology, and that's an area that really is under development across the board in the space of UAVs. That picture there that we have is a, sorry, that one there. That's the sense and avoid from DJI. It's a sonar device, an optical flow sensor, and that's getting us in the right direction, but we've still got a lot more to go. The other one is accidents and recovery. I don't know if you've flown these drones before, but they quite often crash, and they also quite often, even in a normal gentle landing, tip over. So the wind blows or the ground is not fully smooth or straight, it'll tip over. What happens when a drone comes to you and the Kogan drone is coming to deliver your products and it just tips? Who's going to be the person that comes in, knocks in your backyard and picks it up and lets it go back on its way? So there are a lot of problems. Also, an interesting thing that you notice is that they also seem to use 4 rotors. The way a quadcopter works is each rotor provides a different torque in different direction so that it stabilizes. As soon as one of those goes and drops out, the thing just starts spinning uncontrollably. And the saving grace is that you can sort of land it wherever it is in a spinnable sort of fashion, but you're not flying it on its mission anymore. That's why when you see high-end videography and people mounting big cameras like a Canon 5D, they're usually using a hexacopter or an octocopter, because you don't want your device, your $40,000 investment in that case, to go fly away and into the ground. Another interesting thing is that we're talking about drones that are consumer drones in this slide here, which is the calibration procedures for a DJI Phantom, a really popular drone aimed at ready to fly. People like you and me buy it from the shop, buy it from Kogan.com, open it up, and wait, hold on, I've got to sync. I've got to charge. I've got to calibrate the compass. What is that? Quickly flip the switch on and off, rotate it this way, twist it that way. Like, this is what it feels like when you've got to do your first drone flight. It's pretty daunting, and if we're going to do drone delivery, that entire aspect of it needs to be thought of, proceduralized, and dealt with, and the marketing likes to glance over it. But having said that, there are a lot of things that we are doing with drones right now, and I want to talk to you about those things. It's how consumers are using drones today. It's pretty amazing. These drones you see on screen are the DJI Phantom, the Inspire 1, and a 3DR Solo. What they all do is they have safety features so that if you lose control or they go out of range, they will return to home, which is generally where you calibrated it. They have a screen that you put into your iPad or your tablet device, which is attached to the remote control, to show you the camera vision, so that if the drone does go out quite far, you can navigate through that. And they also have a key element, and I think this is an element that's been driven by consumer behavior, and it's the camera. The camera has been first attached to drones from hobbyists, putting GoPros on, and then industry's caught on that this is a really sort of great need, and they're now equipped with 4K video, and it keeps improving. So what do these drones produce? Oh, it's meant to be a video there. Okay, we'll skip that one. That was a video of a drone flying over Sydney. So I think we're having some AV issues and it's not going to kind of show up. But having said that, what I was going to come up with there and let you know about is that drones have this amazing ability for us to get a new perspective on things, and a lot of hobbyists and consumer videographers have taken that, embraced it, and made stunning videos. And those videos were at the Sydney Opera House of people taking a drone selfie where the drone automatically goes out from you. It also means that people have been able to really adopt this in the sense of other businesses, whether it be video for weddings, giving a new perspective, giving a bit of an elevated view of the wedding party, or whether it be for real estate, where you can fly a drone up to level 30 of your proposed tower and show your potential buyer what the view is going to look like from an apartment which is not yet built. There's also a real natural fit in drones in surveying and agriculture. This is an area where we're moving from your typical just camera, go out, inspect and view or film, to adding things like LiDAR or taking photos at sort of regular increments so that you can build a 3D point cloud and a 3D model. At its simplest form, it means that someone with a big winery can fly out a drone, and they can do this via remote. They don't even need to pre-program it, and inspect their field of grapes to determine which acre is the best one to start picking, which is ripe for the picking right now. Previously, how this was done is that they would drive around and inspect these on a tractor, which is a much longer process when you have acres and acres to come past. They're also able to use sensors to detect the water density in areas. And then there's a lot of startups that are coming around this, like Drone Deploy and Farm Logs, which take that data and aggregate it for you and then display it in a meaningful way. This here is a more military scale drone. So this is coming up at the other end. We've come up from the consumer level of drones. Then you have your Predators and your military age. And that stuff is coming in to technology out at the consumer level or at the big industry level of mining. So for example, you get the Melbourne Fire Brigade. They use a quadcopter, which is not this in this case, but they use a quadcopter to inspect places after a fire. It's really dangerous to go into a burnt building straight after the fire to do an assessment of what the cause was. They call this field of drone use the dull, dirty and dangerous. It means it's fairly, in some cases, boring work, like inspecting power lines. It's dangerous to put a person up really high on an oil rig or on a chimney of a big oil, big factory. And it's dirty in a lot of cases because it has to go in areas where it's really smoky and not quite fit for humans to be involved in. This particular drone here is petrol powered, so it has a lot more flight time, but it's also really interesting because it's used by the Navy to spot, similar to how I was talking about the drone, which is to spot rhino poachers. They use this to spot boats that are performing illegal activities. So it does mean that they have eyes in the sky from a lot further distance. Another really cool one, and I hope the video to this one's going to work, is when you see these guys in the park, the space troopers. I don't know if you've ever seen this or witnessed this. It looks pretty weird, but they're doing something. They usually have one of these devices, which is pretty much, that's a big battery, and it's a small quadcopter with a camera and a transmitter, and that's a GPS, which transmits video in analog form straight to those goggles. And you get to experience this. I hope you don't get motion sick. It's like something out of Star Wars, especially the ones with the LED lights, and people are doing crazy things with it. One of the footage in there was from a drone race in Melbourne, actually, and these things are really taking off. They're getting sponsorship. There's a worldwide competition that either just passed or is about to be in California. So it's a really interesting and new sport that people of their own accord have come up with and figured out. Now, a lot of people like drones, and some people don't like drones. And that's for a number of reasons. I'm not going to go into the reasons of the Predator drones, but I will go in to talk to you a bit about a few of the things that the people that don't like drones are doing. Signal jamming, so you can pretty much spam the wireless spectrum that a drone operates in, so it doesn't know what to do. It can't communicate with anyone around, and that just freezes it up and maybe it drops to the ground. Boeing have a laser which can burn the drone while it's in, and it just tracks and burns it from kilometers away. In America, obviously, they have produced ammunition, so they've got shotgun pellets, and people hunt drones in the States. And then there's government regulations. Government regulations are both, they're a double-edged sword. They're there to protect consumers. They're there to protect us because we don't want to be here, and you don't want me flying a drone into the audience by accident. But at the same time, they are difficult to move and progress with in industry. So, for example, in Australia, you can't use a plane, you can't fly a drone without an operator's license if you're using it for commercial purpose. So it does make it difficult for the person that wants to do wedding photography to justify the expense of getting an operator's license. But I think there's work in place that will hopefully make that a lot more streamlined and easier. So it's only the beginning, I think, with drones. We're at the cusp of innovation. What we see here is a drone from Facebook. It's a solar-powered drone, and this drone is designed, it's got a wingspan of a 737. Once it goes up in space, it's designed to fly there for a very long time and provide internet down. So I want to bring you down to this last slide here and finish on this note and this sort of message to you. When we first had television, which not many of us were around to witness, there was a transition from radio broadcast to television. But what happened was that the first programs would have been of people that were speaking into the camera in the same sort of way that it was when they were performing radio. And now what they're doing, it took about 10 years of us understanding the television media for us to become a bit more in line and in tune with what we want to consume on that. And that was using your imagination to create films or stories that don't exist in real life. And when we ran out of imagination, we started filming people in a house and called it Big Brother. With the internet, it was a similar story. Internet came out and it was available to a lot of people, but it was only really just static sites that we just read. Now, these sites were great for the time and really adopting that new medium to share information, but we didn't really understand what happens. So what happens with, or we didn't really understand how to use that medium properly. It wasn't until about 10 years later that we started doing online commerce, and we started delivering goods to you from your computer to your house without you stepping out. And it wasn't till we could hire someone else's services on the other side of the world, pay them by credit card, have something delivered to us electronically, and we never knew about it. Or we can talk and share experiences through Facebook with all our colleagues around the world. It took us a long time to understand that media, and it's a similar thing with drones, where they've become mainstream and we're really at the cusp of it. And there were some AV issues which had some visuals that I really wanted to show you, but we'll have to wait till next time. Of where we're going with that, and that's like drone swarms coming together to build a rope bridge that humans can then cross, or micro drones, little surveillance items that can just be thrown up in the air. Where we're at is like the 80s, when Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak created the Apple II computer. What I'm really excited about and enthusiastic to see is who will be the Steve Jobs of drones that comes through onto this stage in 10 years' time with an idea that really captures what drones are all about. Something we don't know today, but I hope there's some food for thought for all of you in the audience of how you can apply your entrepreneurial skills. Thank you.